Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is a story of what if Naruto and Sasuke was like Hashirama and Madara. Naruto and Sasuke will be strong. Naruto will have a wood release and he is a Senju. Sasuke will, as you all know, an Uchiha. Now let's start the story. Chapter 7. Alright. Officially 7th chapter is out. Now, if you're wondering why it says, chapter end, in the middle, it's because that's where the two chapters have been merged. And because there can be a bit of a time skip between chapters, I felt it best to show why that is. It's because that's where the chapter was supposed to end, and then jump further ahead next chapter. Anyway, with that over with, enjoy. 10 days were left until the third exam. Naruto was sitting on the ground in the same spot he had been every day for the last few weeks. Jiraiya had felt very smug. So far, Naruto had only managed to pop a hole in the balls. The boy had managed to pop the water balloon much quicker than Jiraiya, but when Naruto took so long to pop the rubber ball, he regained a bit of pride, even though he knew Naruto should have been able to pop it a long time ago. Concentration isn't exactly something you lack, Jiraiya said, crossing his arms as he stood before Naruto. You should have popped this ball a long time ago. What's the problem? Naruto's brow furrowed as he stared at the ball in his hand. I'm just worried, I suppose. Worried. Why? I'm getting this bad feeling, like shit's about to hit the fan, or something like that. Plus, Hinata is facing Neji in the third exam, which is cause for worry as well. I've been able to pop it since the second day, Naruto said as the ball in his hand started bulging, and then exploded, much to Jiraiya's surprise. I just needed some time to think about things. HMPH, Jiraiya huffed, crossing his arms. Show off. So, what's the third step? Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow. Now, Jiraiya unsealed a third bag, this one containing balloons again. However, these balloons were filled with air, and not water. The first step was rotation, the second step was power, Jiraiya said, picking up a balloon and holding it up for Naruto to see. The third step is this. Nothing happened. Naruto started molding chakra, and his eyes widened when his senses picked up on what was happening. You're forming a Rasengan inside the balloon, aren't you? Correct, Jiraiya said with a smirk. The point of the third step is to bring out the first two steps at 100%, and maintain it. In short, you not only have to keep the spinning and the power at their greatest, but you also have to make a layer inside the balloon to contain the chakra. This requires a large amount of concentration, because the higher the destructive power, the more you have to add, and the quicker you have to spin. Thus, the outer layer must be stronger. Slowly, Naruto nodded. Then, he picked up a balloon and said, alright, time to get to work. Naruto stood in a loose stance in the arena on the day of the third exam. With him were Sasuke, Hinata, Temari, Kankuro, Gaara, Neji, Shikamaru, and Shino. Good thing you're here, Naruto muttered to Sasuke, smirking. I was afraid that you'd pick up some of Kakashi's tardiness. Well, he actually wanted to get some last-second training in, but I wanted to be here on time, Sasuke said, smirking as well. Naruto glanced at the Suna trio as the cage arrived at the top box. Gaara was staring up at the man with nothing but hatred in his eyes. The Sandaime stood up. Thanks, everyone, for coming to the Konoha Chunin selection exam. We will now start the main tournament matches between the 9 participants who made it through the preliminaries. Please stay and watch until the end. There's something I'd like to tell you before the matches. The proctor, Genma, as Naruto had learned that his name was, said, turning to them. Look at this, he said and took out a piece of paper, showing the matches. In case you didn't pay attention the first time, these are the matchups. Check once again to see who you're fighting. After holding the paper up for a few more seconds, Genma pocketed it. Alright, guys, this is the final test. The arena is different, but the rules are the same as in the preliminaries, as in there are none. You fight until one of you dies or acknowledges defeat. But if I determine that the fight is over, I'll step in and stop it, you got that? Everyone either nodded or did nothing. No one said anything, but it was clear to everyone that they all understood. Now, the first fight, Hyuga Hinata and Hyuga Neji. Those two stay here, while the rest of you go to the waiting room. Hinata took a deep breath to steel herself. Both her teammates gave her comforting pats on the shoulders as they headed off toward the waiting room with the others. Soon enough, only Hinata, Neji, and Genma were left on the arena floor. Hinata and Neji facing each other, with Genma standing off to the side. I never thought I'd be facing you, Hinata-sama, Neji said, staring hard at Hinata. Neji Nizan. Hinata mumbled, closing her eyes and taking another deep breath, before opening them again. First match of the third exam, begin. Genma said, officially starting the match. However, Neji apparently didn't feel like starting the match yet. Before we start the match, I'd like to say something, Hinata-sama, Neji said, narrowing his eyes. You don't make a good shinobi. Forfeit now. Hinata tilted her head to the side, and Neji explained, you are too kind. You wish for harmony and avoid conflict. You agree with others, never resisting. And you have no confidence in yourself. I always feel your sense of inferiority. That's why I thought it would be best for you to remain a genin. But the Chunin exam can only be taken as a team of 3. You couldn't turn down your teammate's request, and unwillingly entered. That's reality. Am I wrong? Yes, Hinata said, making Neji blink. Kakashi-sensei told us all that it was completely voluntary to enter. We all entered willingly, without being pressured by anyone else. I entered this exam because I wanted to change. Neji sighed. Hinata-sama. As I thought, you are a spoiled brat of the main house. People cannot change themselves. Losers are losers. Their personality and strength will not change. Because people cannot change, differences are born. Expressions like elite and loser are created. Looks, brains, ability, size, personality. All people judge and are judged in these values. Based on these unchangeable factors, people discriminate and are discriminated against. And they suffer within their own means. Just like the fact that I am from the branch family, and you are from the main family cannot be changed. I have seen through many things with this Byakugan. So I know, you are just acting strong. Deep inside, you just want to run away from here. Hinata's eyes drifted shut, and her head lowered slowly, which made Neji smirk. Your eyes closed, and you ducked your head. Defense mechanisms that, Neji Nizan. Hinata interrupted in a voice that was much different from her usual voice. It was still soft and gentle, but there was an edge to it that had never been there before. When she raised her head again and opened her eyes, her Byakugan was activated, and she slipped into a Juken stance. Please, stop trying to talk me to death, and let's fight instead. A bark of laughter that could be easily recognized as Naruto's was heard from the opening in the arena wall where the other competitors were standing, while Neji flinched in surprise. However, his eyes immediately hardened, and his Byakugan activated as well as he gritted his teeth and assumed a Juken stance. Fine. I'll show you that you cannot change your destiny. Neji charged at Hinata, and the two became engaged in a Juken fight, which was something that was actually quite beautiful to look at. The Juken was very graceful, and when two opponents had the same graceful flow, it looked more like a violent dance than a fight. Neji was visibly frustrated by this, as it would appear that the two were evenly matched. Each strike that Neji threw at Hinata was blocked or deflected, and each strike that Hinata threw was met with the same defenses. The fight continued like this for several minutes, both fighters moving at amazing speeds. Naruto, watching from the stands, looked at Sasuke, who was observing the fight through narrowed eyes. TCH, he uttered, crossing his arms. She really is too soft. Yeah, Naruto said with a nod. If it were you, she'd already have you on the ground, writhing in pain. She used a cheap shot. Sasuke muttered, directing a glare at Naruto. You'd do the same if someone kicked you in the junk. Naruto laughed to himself, then looked down at the fight again. Naturally, he couldn't keep quiet. Hey, Hinata. Don't go easy on him just cause he's family. Kick his ass. As if obeying Naruto's order, Hinata surprisingly quickly batted one of Neji's attacks out of the way and lashed out, hitting him with a Juken strike to the left shoulder. Neji grunted in both pain and surprise, skipping back a couple of steps and staring at Hinata in shock. I have changed, Neji Nizan, Hinata said softly, staring at Neji with pity. People can change. I was once weak, but I have become much stronger. Naruto-kun once told me that our destiny is what we make it. The talk of a loser, clinging desperately to the hope of improving their life. Neji growled out. Don't think you can beat me, just because you managed to hit me once. Neji charged at Hinata, and once more they became engaged in that flowing, deadly dance that was a Juken fight. Hinata. Give him the Sasuke special. Naruto barked out, which caused a noticeable blush to appear on Hinata's face, despite her being completely focused on fighting Neji. Meanwhile, Sasuke cringed at the mention of that move. Hinata batted another strike out of the way, then closed the short distance between them with a spin, which ended with her knee flying up, and smashing straight into the soft spot between Neji's legs. The male Hyuga's eyes bugged out, and every single male member in the audience winced and covered their junk with a loud, shocked, "Oh," as sympathy pain coursed through them. As Neji was no doubt trying to blink the lights of pain out of his eyes, Hinata took advantage of the situation and got into a strange stance, crouched down slightly with her left as pointing forward and down, and her right pointing backward and up. "Nizan, you are in the range of my Hake. Jukenho. Hake Rokujuyan Sho." Neji only had time to go wide-eyed, before Hinata charged forward, jabbing him twice with her fingers with a cry of, "Ni Sho." Then 4 times, yelling, "Yan Sho." This continued, Hinata doubling her strikes 3 more times, and finished off striking him 64 times with a cry of, "Rokujuyan Sho." Neji cried out in pain as he flew back, spitting up blood. He impacted hard with the ground and rolled several feet, before coming to a stop on his back. "I am possible," he grunted out through gritted teeth. "This can't. I used to think like you, Neji Nizan." Hinata mumbled as she walked up to Neji, staring down at him. "I thought I was weak, and I thought I would never become strong like you. I bought into your comments about destiny. However, I've changed. Naruto-kun and Sasuke-kun showed me that. It doesn't matter who you are, or where you are from. As long as you try your best and work hard, you can overcome anything, like how I managed to defeat you just now." Food for thought, Neji Nizan. Genma smirked as he watched Hinata, who turned around and walked off. Winner, Hyuga Hinata. Applause broke out in the audience. Up in the spectators' box, Sasuke was smirking and clapping, while Naruto was whooping and cheering loudly. "Will Senju Naruto and Aburame Shino come down here, please?" Genma called out once the applause and cheering had died down. Naruto gave a triumphant laugh as he hopped down into the arena, while Shino, calm as ever, decided to take the stairs. Soon, Naruto and Shino were standing in the middle of the arena, facing each other. "Naruto, we have come a long way since we were chosen to spar in the academy," Shino said in his usual monotone. "It would be foolish of you to assume that my power level is the same as then, just as it would be foolish of me to think that of you. You know, Shino, I think that's the longest sentence I've ever heard you say," Naruto said with a small grin. "But you were always strong in the academy, ranking second strongest and all, so it'll be fun to see if we still draw." "Such an outcome is unlikely," Shino said simply, taking his hands out of the pockets of his jacket. "Second match of the third exam, begin." Genma called, and Shino immediately spread his arms out. "Why is it unlikely?" "Because unlike in the academy spars, we are not limited to using only taijutsu. Those destruction bugs are damn gluttons," Naruto thought with his eyes narrowing slightly, watching as the bugs started flying out of Shino's sleeves to swarm around him. "I've got plenty of chakra to spare, but it'd be crappy to waste it all in the first match, especially since I'd be fighting Hinata in the next one. Sheet. I actually have to plan this match. I'm no good at that." Suddenly, Naruto's eyes widened, and he leapt to the side, jumping away several feet. "How sneaky of you, Shino," he said with a small grin on his face. "But unfortunately for you, I'm a pretty decent sensor. I can sense the chakra inside every single one of your bugs. They won't sneak up on me." Shino was smart. Hell, he was a lot smarter than Naruto, so the blonde knew that the bug user was already making plans for how to proceed. "I don't want to give you the upper hand by leaving you on the offensive, so I'm gonna go ahead, alright," Naruto said, flashing through seals. Mokuton. Shichiro no Jutsu, Wood Element. 4-pillar prison technique. Shino's eyebrows almost shot into his hairline as timber burst from the ground all around him, trapping him inside a wooden cage. Naruto, however, furrowed his brow, and with a tch, changed his hand seal from a snake to ram, which caused wooden spikes to shoot out of the bars, impaling Shino, who dispersed into a swarm of bugs. Naruto furrowed his brow, trying his damnedest to sense Shino. At the last second, his eyes widened, and he spun around in time to block a punch coming from behind him. So, Shino had let almost all the bugs in his body leave so that he could hide better. If it wasn't for the fact that 3 bugs stayed in him, Naruto would never have sensed him. Naruto lashed out with a punch, which was dodged, but he utilized the momentum from the swing to bring his leg up in a backspin kick, which connected with Shino's cheek with enough force to send him flying through the air, impacting hard with the wall of the arena. That was careless of you, Shino, Naruto said with a smirk as Shino pushed himself to his feet. Was it? Naruto went wide-eyed at that, realizing that he had let his senses dull during the fight. Activating his chakra sensor ability, he discovered no less than 19 destruction bugs on his body. Damn, even for so few bugs, they were suddenly sucking out his chakra quickly. Naruto leapt away, and only his fur-collared shirt remained in place, the only article of clothing that actually had bugs on it, leaving him in his mesh shirt and armor plating. TCH, your bugs are fast eaters. Naruto muttered, flashing through seals again. Doten. Dosekiryu no Jutsu, Earth Element. Earth Dragon Technique. Suddenly, the ground in front of Naruto shot into the air, forming a dragon made out of dirt, which charged straight at Shino, whose eyebrows shot up again, and he was forced to dodge the attack again and again. Naruto was actually planning ahead this time, so when Shino's back hit the 4-pillar prison, he triumphantly switched handseal from rat to snake, and wooden poles shot out of the bars to wrap around Shino, who muttered a, "What?" in surprise. Shino, Naruto said as the dragon disintegrated. I'm sure your bugs can eat through this wood. However, he put his hand in a half-rammed seal, and a spike grew from the bar Shino was strapped against, to poke him in the back of the neck. Could they eat through it before that spike pierced your spine? This was unexpected, Shino said. Why? Because you have never shown yourself to plan ahead before. I underestimated you. Proctor, this match is over. I forfeit. Genma nodded and raised his hand. Winner, Senju Naruto. Surprisingly, applause broke out, which shocked Naruto, as no one had ever really shown that they liked him before. Or maybe they just did it as a courtesy. Nonetheless, Naruto liked it, so he grinned widely and raised his hands in victory as he jogged over to his shirt to pick it up, the wooden prison retreating into the ground, leaving no sign that it was ever there. When Naruto reached the spectator's box, he found both his teammates waiting and smiling at him. Well, smirking, in Sasuke's case. Good job. But he almost had you with his distraction, Sasuke commented, and Naruto gave an embarrassed grin. Yeah, almost. I was just lucky he sent so few bugs after me. Then again, if he'd sent more, I would have sensed them sooner. You did great, Naruto-kun. Hinata praised. I'm expecting you to do the same in the next round, Hinata, Naruto said, his grin turning excited. It'll be you against me. Hinata's confidence, what little she had mustered so far, vanished in an instant as she made that realization, and her eyes widened in fear. Don't worry, Sasuke said with a smirk. Just give it your all, and you can walk away with your head high whether you win or not. Yeah, don't go soft on me, Hinata. I'm looking forward to this, Naruto said, patting her on the shoulder. Will Sabaku no Gaara and Kankuro come down here? Genma called. Immediately, Kankuro's eyes widened in fear as he cast a terrified look at Gaara, then raised his hand and called out, Proctor, I'm gonna forfeit. Boos were heard from the crowd at that, their blood having started pumping with the previous 2 matches, and Gaara gave Kankuro a dangerous stare. Well then, Uchiha Sasuke and Nara Shikamaru, come on down. Sasuke smirked, and after Naruto patted him on the shoulder, he hopped down into the arena just like Naruto had done. Shikamaru sighed to himself as he stared down at Sasuke, who gestured for him to come down. How troublesome. Proctor, I'm also gonna forfeit. Let the Suna girl fight him. The crowd started booing again, but Shikamaru looked completely unaffected by them, instead just plopping down with his back against the railing, his eyes drifting shut. Tamari scoffed and drew her fan, giving it a swing which mustered a gust of wind. She leapt out of the box and rode the wind on her fan down into the arena, landing in front of Sasuke with a smirk on her face. Alright, then. The 5th match of the first round, begin. Tamari immediately pulled her fan back and then swung it, calling, Fuden, Kameidachi, wind element, sickle weasel technique. A gale of wind was sent forth, looking more like a horizontal hurricane than anything, but Sasuke didn't dodge or anything. He just smirked and flashed through handseals, ending in a tiger, which made Temari's eyes widen. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. Sasuke called out, bringing his hand to his mouth, before blowing out a massive fireball that smashed into the Fuden jutsu. It drew power from the clashing technique, and the flame burned hotter as it pushed through the wind and charged straight at Temari, who leapt out of the way, just as the fireball smashed into the ground where she had just been, exploding. Dust and smoke rose in a great cloud from the explosion, and Temari was seen coming shooting out of it. She landed a bit unsteadily, and Sasuke immediately saw why. Her right leg had been kinda badly burned by the attack, as had the back of her right hand. The Suna Genin was gritting her teeth as she glared at Sasuke, who kept smirking. I think you might want to give up now, you being a Fuden user, and me being a Kaden user, Sasuke advised, grabbing the hilt of his sword and slowly drawing it out of its sheath. From here on out, I'll be getting serious. Hey, think I'll give up just cause I'm at a disadvantage? Temari asked with a scoff. Get real. Kaden. Sasuke muttered as he finished drawing his sword and gave it a twirl to hold it horizontally in front of him. Isoha, fire element. Sharp spear blade. Suddenly, the entire length of Sasuke's Chikudo was engulfed in flames. As Sasuke charged at her, Temari felt a bit more confident. After all, he didn't have very large flames right now, so it would be impossible for him to overpower her attacks, right? Fuden. Kamedachi. Temari called once more, swinging her fan and sending forth a blast of wind at Sasuke. What happened next, however, greatly surprised her. Sasuke swung his sword at the incoming attack, and amazingly deflected it. No, that was wrong, he took control of it. He kept spinning with his swing and leapt through the air, the entire Fuden attack catching on fire and trailing after him in a spiral of fire, as though it was a long, burning cloth hanging from his sword. As soon as he had crossed the distance between them with his leap, Sasuke switched to a reverse grip and slashed his sword down at Temari, whose eyes widened as she dodged. She thought dodging 3 steps would be enough, so she didn't expect all the fire trailing after Sasuke's blade to compile and slam into the ground as well, and like water against rock splashing to the sides, rushing straight at Temari, who barely had time to gasp before it smashed into her. Temari was heard screaming as she hurriedly jumped out of the fire, but much of her body was already badly burnt, and some of her clothing was on fire. Landing on unsteady legs, she patted the fires out as quickly as she could, but not quickly enough. As soon as she looked up, Sasuke was already in front of her, and half a second later, his knee was planted deeply in her stomach, making her cough up a decent wad of both blood and spit. Next second, the butt of his sword impacted with the back of her head, effectively knocking her out. Going against an Uchiha using jutsu that are weak against my own. Sasuke muttered, the fire on his blade vanishing as he twirled it a few times, before slowly sheathing it. After the hilt clicked against the sheath, he shook his head with a scoff. Foolish. Winner, Uchiha Sasuke. Surprisingly, the cheers for Sasuke weren't all that much louder than the cheers had been for Naruto. Even more surprisingly, or it would be for anyone who didn't truly know Sasuke, he wasn't upset about this. As Naruto was damn near his brother, he felt the blonde deserved the acknowledgement for his victories as much as Sasuke himself did. After all, he could do almost every Sasuke could, and yet his intelligence could only rival a brick. Huh. Naruto muttered in the stands, narrowing his eyes. What is it, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked. It's strange. Sasuke won, so I'm feeling happy for him, but for some reason. I also feel a sudden urge to slug him on the mouth. Hinata giggled at that. After all, both Naruto and Sasuke had, ever since she became part of Team 7, almost always been able to sense when the other was talking about them. In fact, during one workout session, Sasuke had revealed to Hinata that he admired Naruto, because he was an idiot who actually managed to succeed. 5 minutes later, Naruto had come rushing onto the training ground, having been at home before that, and punched Sasuke on the jaw, claiming that he got a sudden urge to do so. And once, Naruto had muttered something about Sasuke being a stuck-up prick who probably cheated at Genkin with his Sharingan somehow while they were at Ichiraku Ramen, having lunch. A few minutes later, Sasuke had showed up and smacked Naruto on the back of the head. Hinata still didn't understand how they could sense those things. There will be a half-hour break right now, to allow the fighters to recuperate before the second round fights, Genma announced. Please wait patiently until the next match is called. Hey, here he comes, Naruto said with a grin as Sasuke came up the stairs into the spectator's box, a smirk on his face. That bit with the Isoha at the end. Freaking beautiful, man. I agree, Sasuke-kun, Hinata said, smiling softly. You moved with a very nice flow. Graceful, even, Naruto said, then struck a very fruity pose with his arms flapping slowly like wings, and his right leg extended backward as if making to leap into the air. Almost like a swan. Say what you will, I don't think swans are very graceful, Sasuke said with a shrug, which made Hinata's eyes widen. It was a well-known fact that the swan was her favorite bird. I suppose that depends on the person looking at it, she muttered, but both Naruto and Sasuke could see the small glare she was sending Sasuke's way, which was a huge step forward compared to how she was back at the academy. So, is there a reason why we're talking about freakin' swans during our break? Naruto asked, leaning back against the railing while furrowing his brow in confusion. Do you have something better to talk about? Sasuke asked, raising an eyebrow, which made Naruto hum as he tilted his head back in thought. Fingers, he said after a moment of silence, which made his teammates blink. He held up his hands to show them his fingers. Look at them. Why are they called fingers when you never see a thing? Naruto burst out laughing at his own joke, but the laughter slowly died down when he noticed that his teammates, yes, even Hinata, were looking at him like he had just stuck his finger in poo and then licked it off. Without warning, Naruto was socked on the mouth by Sasuke. Ow. Naruto whined, clutching at his mouth. What the hell, man? It was a just punishment, Sasuke hissed with narrowed eyes. I felt my own IQ drop from hearing that crap. Geez, I get it, Sasuke gets testy after a fight. Naruto muttered as he licked the inside of his lips to check for blood. Good thing your punches feel like there were 3 pillows between your fist and my face. Sasuke looked on the verge of snarling at Naruto, but it was only his pride as an Uchiha holding him back from doing so. Sasuke took a deep breath, and reminded himself that Naruto was only trying to rile him up, and he wouldn't give the blonde the satisfaction of him getting pissed. So, when this is over, what are we eating? Naruto asked, changing the subject, seeing as Sasuke wasn't going to snap at him. The Uchiha in question raised his fist for another janken, but Naruto pointed at their other teammate. Let Hinata decide for once. Whatever you two want is fine by me. Hinata mumbled, but both Naruto and Sasuke turned to give her stern looks. Hinata. Naruto muttered, which made Hinata jump, as his tone held the promise of tougher training sessions, a usual punishment he and Sasuke had taken to threatening her with whenever she reverted to her meek, quiet self. Why yakiniku sounds good. That's a good idea. I have no objections, Naruto said, and Sasuke nodded. Same here, sounds good. The half-hour break passed kinda slowly for Team 7. Sasuke spent it by juggling kunai, Naruto sat against the railing and tried to touch his nose with his tongue, and Hinata spent it by closing her eyes and fantasizing about something. Every so often, she would smile or blush, so whatever it was must have been good. Alright, I'm thinking of something, lavender, Naruto said when the half-hour was almost up, sitting on the railing. Sasuke was leaning against it with his left arm and right elbow, his chin resting in the palm of his right hand as he looked out at the arena. Is it Hinata's eyes again? Man, you're good at this. Naruto praised with a grin. Alright, now I'm thinking of something, red. The Sandaim's hat. Damn it. I thought for sure you'd guess Gaara's hair. Alright, the first match of the second round is about to begin. Genma announced, having flickered into view in the center of the arena. Oh, thank whatever deity is out there. Sasuke muttered in relief. Those in the crowd who had left the stadium during the break had by now returned, and were eagerly awaiting the following matches. Hyuga Hinata and Senju Naruto. You know the drill, Genma said, and both Naruto and Hinata hopped down into the arena. They walked to the center and stood across from each other, Naruto smiling, and Hinata looking nervous. Genma looked them over. Alright, I hope you're both rested and ready, because the first match of the second round begins, now. Slowly, Hinata got into a Juken stance, and Naruto got into his own unorthodox fighting stance, his smile turning into a grin. Don't be nervous, Hinata, he said with the encouraging voice he always used during spars to get her to push herself to her limits and beyond. I'm really happy to be able to test myself against you. Let's make this as fun as possible, yeah. Oh okay, Naruto-kun. Hinata said softly, closing her eyes and taking a deep breath. As she did, her back straightened slightly, her shoulders relaxed, and she shifted her footing slightly. Then, when her eyes snapped open, her Byakugan was activated. I'm ready. They stood stock still for a few moments. Hinata's brow furrowed. Naruto-kun. Naruto gave a small laugh. To be honest, I'm a little nervous of getting in close with you. You're dangerous in close quarter combat. But then, I really want to push you, so. I'm a little torn. Please, make the first move, so I won't have to bother with thinking too much. Might blow a fuse. Hinata, to her credit, only hesitated for a second, torn between the horror at the thought of hurting Naruto, and the urge to comply with his request. The latter won out, and she charged at Naruto, who grinned wider. The grin disappeared, however, when he barely dodged the first strike, the same with the following 5 strikes. This was different from the spars. When they trained, they always pushed themselves to their limits, and even though they put on the show of doing the same during spars, they always tended to hold back a bit. Even though Naruto knew that Hinata had been doing the same, he didn't know exactly how much until this match. Naruto caught Hinata's wrist and stepped into her, his shoulder under her arm, and flipped her over him. To his great surprise, however, she landed on her feet and immediately spun around, hitting him with a Juken strike to the kidney, which made him gasp in pain, before immediately leaping away to create a bit of distance between them. Alright, so maybe going easy on her to push her to her limits was a bad idea. As it stood, Hinata and Naruto were probably equal in speed. No, it was slight, but Hinata was a bit faster than him. It showed when she closed the distance between them and attacked again. Naruto was hard-pressed to dodge and deflect the swift strikes being launched at him without pause. He just had to endure, that was the key. Let her tire herself out. He could outlast her 3 times over with ease, there was no doubt about that. But then, that would be unfair to Hinata. He deflected a double strike, and quickly put his hands in a snake seal, causing wooden poles to shoot out of the ground, heading straight for Hinata to restrain her. Hinata, however, did the smart thing and leapt back, no doubt sensing Naruto's intention of forcing her to do so. Alright, time to actually think. Beat her in a way that will let her learn to fix the weakness. Just gotta find a weakness, beyond the obvious lack of stamina, and the weakness against long-range attacks. Let's see. Naruto's eyes drifted shut, but he made sure to keep his senses up so he'd know if Hinata attacked again. Sheet. Thinking about crap like this is Sasuke's department. The Juken is pretty damn flawless, flowing, powerful, devastating, and perfectly balanced. I need to. Wait. Balanced. That's it. Naruto was lucky that he came up with his solution when he did, as Hinata chose that moment to charge at him. Naruto grinned and knelt down, bringing his fist down and unleashing as much chakra as possible when he struck the dirt. The result was a punch so hard that it cracked the ground and shook it something fierce, enough to make Hinata, who was just about to attack, stumble in surprise. Now, despite this being an official match, Naruto still decided to strike Hinata as he did during spars. He had never liked so much as the thought of bruising her, but had agreed when she had said that it was important that she learn not to flinch when encountering pain in the field. Therefore, he crossed the distance between them and did a backhanded swing, planting his forearm in her stomach, which made her gasp in surprise and pain. He rolled her over his shoulder again, and this time it worked in tossing her onto her back. Confident that she had come back to her senses by now, he jumped and spun, bringing his fist down toward her. For a moment, he feared that he was wrong, but at the last second, Hinata rolled out of the way as his fist smashed into the ground. Even more surprising, she spun on her back and smashed her heel into Naruto's face with enough force to cause him to tumble across the ground a few feet. He recovered, though, shooting to his feet at the same time as Hinata. Naruto went on the offensive this time, but when he reached Hinata, he didn't attack, instead kneeling and punching the ground again, which once more shook her off balance. The Hyuga heiress was surprisingly quick to adapt to this tactic, however, and had regained her balance long before Naruto came up in an uppercut, which was easily dodged and countered with another Juken strike that hit him in the side of his ribcage with enough force to send him stumbling. Naruto-kun, Hinata spoke up. I understand your desire to push me in this fight, But I don't want you to stick with taijutsu when you know that it has you at a disadvantage. I won't be offended if you use jutsu. Are you sure? Naruto asked, and when Hinata nodded, he started going through hand seals. Well, if you insist. Naruto finished his chain in a ram seal, and his cheeks puffed out. Then, he fired a ball of water at Hinata, who danced out of the way. Not finished, though, he fired 3 more at her. The third one was in a path where he had predicted that she would be. So, with a cry of surprise, Hinata dodged right into the ball of water, which knocked her off her feet. Gotcha. Naruto said as he flashed through hand seals again, then slammed his hands down into the ground, which started shaking as 3 wooden poles shot out of the ground and wrapped around Hinata, suspending her upside down in the air. I win, Naruto announced to Hinata, who smiled softly at him. Congratulations, Naruto-kun. Hey, you should be proud, Hinata, Naruto praised, grinning. I had to use ninjutsu to defeat you. If this had been purely taijutsu, you probably would have won. Anyway, I think you'll have to concede to have the proctor call it. You proctor. Hinata uttered, glancing to the side at Genma. I give up. Winner, Senju Naruto. Genma called out, which caused the crowd to cheer once more. Chapter end. Naruto moaned as he came up the stairs into the competitor's box, clutching at his ribs. That last strike hurt something fierce. Serves you right, Sasuke said with a smirk, passing him, as his match against Gaara was coming up. Shouldn't have gone easy on our girl like that. I just wanted to enjoy the fight as long as possible. Naruto muttered, walking up to the railing and sitting down, just as Gaara vanished in a swirl of sand, reappearing down in the arena. This turned out to be an uncomfortable position, however, so he stood up and leaned forward against the railing instead. This didn't work, either, so he straightened up and tilted his head to the side, before grunting and trying another position. Naruto-kun, came Hinata's voice as she ascended the stairs and approached Naruto, whose eyes narrowed. He uttered in response, placing one hand against the railing with the other in his pocket, his brow furrowed as he tried to adjust himself into a comfortable position. What's wrong? It's Gaara, Naruto said, staring down at the redhead. His chakra feels vile. And he doesn't exactly look like the most stable child in daycare, so. You're worried about Sasuke-kun? Hinata asked as she walked up to stand next to him. No, I'm not worried. Sasuke is strong. Could probably wipe the floor with Gaara. Then why are you fidgeting, Naruto-kun? Naruto's eyes narrowed again. Because I don't think Gaara is as inclined to hold back as Sasuke is, he muttered, but managed to tear his gaze away from the arena floor to look around the stands, taking in everyone's expectant expressions. This is probably the match everyone was looking forward to the most. Oh, there's Kakashi-sensei. Let's go say hi. Meanwhile, down in the arena, Sasuke and Gaara were staring into each other's eyes. Sasuke hated to admit this, but Gaara had pretty intimidating eyes. It was as though he saw Sasuke as nothing but a bug to be crushed, and he had complete confidence that his power level allowed him to think as such. This made him dangerous. Besides, Sasuke had seen Gaara's power in the preliminaries. Not only did he have that sand that rose up to protect him from attacks, but he also had that second skin of sand to protect him as well. He could also control his sand with ease, and use it to crush his opponents. Sasuke would have to be an idiot to think that the sand in the gourd was the only sand Gaara could control. Scraping his foot slightly against the ground, Sasuke took in the texture and found himself gritting his teeth in annoyance. In all likelihood, the very ground was Gaara's weapon. But then, Sasuke was sure the sand techniques were Doden techniques, which meant that it was weak against lightning, Sasuke's second element, which was just perfect. Begin. Genma called, and Gaara's sand immediately shot out of his gourd, which caused Sasuke to leap back to put some distance between them. Gaara looked ready to attack, but then he suddenly clutched at his head, grunting in pain. Don't get so angry, mother, he whispered with a crazed look on his face. I fed you some nasty blood last night. I'm sorry. But this time, it will be delicious. Gaara flinched in pain and gave another grunt, lowering his face so that Sasuke couldn't see his face. When he raised it again, however, the crazed look was gone, and all that was left was his usual deadened look. Come, he ordered. Sasuke didn't charge in recklessly. Instead, he took a moment to think about this. In all honesty, despite Sasuke's lightning element, Naruto would probably have been the best match for Gaara. He could easily spam clones to sneak one past the defenses, then use his monstrous strength to punch straight through the second defense. After all, if Sasuke used his latest move on Gaara, and had to punch through the sand shield, then even if he managed to hit Gaara, his arm would still be surrounded by sand. Sasuke saw what happened to Lee when he got his arm and leg trapped in Gaara's sand, after all, so he knew what it could do. If I'm going to use taijutsu, I can't slow down. In and out before he can react. If I stay too close for too long, I'm history, Sasuke thought, narrowing his eyes, which turned red as he activated his Sharingan. At least with this, I'll be able to see it coming more easily. Sasuke gave a small scoff of amusement as he pulled back his sleeves to show the weight bracelets on his wrists. I suppose there should be no underestimating you. So, I shouldn't hold back, he said as he tapped the bracelets against each other, causing them to come loose and fall to the ground. Having long since moved on to chakra weights courtesy of Naruto, Sasuke only needed them on his wrists to make sure he had weight on all of his body, not just his arms. So when the bracelets dropped, he felt light, which made him smirk. Here I go, he muttered softly, before blurring out of view. Half a second later, he reappeared in front of Gaara and sent a punch at him, which was blocked by the sand, which shot up to form a shield in front of the redhead. Not deterred in the slightest, Sasuke blurred out of view again and reappeared behind Gaara, pleased to see that his speed was better than the sand's, given how his next punch connected with Gaara's cheek, lifting him off the ground. I'm not done yet, Sasuke announced as Gaara went flying, and he blurred out of view again, reappearing underneath the airborne Gaara and kicking upwards, sending him shooting up into the air. Sasuke blurred away one more. This time, he reappeared behind Gaara in the air, a smirk on his face. In the stands, standing with Kakashi and Hinata, Naruto's eyes widened, and he couldn't help but laugh softly. Kage Buyo. Hey, even when he's getting his ass kicked, it seems he can't resist copying moves. Let's see if I can't break through that armor of yours, Sasuke said to Gaara as he flipped him around and swung his left arm, smashing his forearm into Gaara's ribs with enough force to spin him in the other direction, at which point he swung his right arm, slamming into his other side. Sasuke repeated this move several times, finishing off with a forearm to the throat, which flung Gaara downward so he was below Sasuke, who flipped in the air once, then brought his heel down into Gaara's chest just as the redhead impacted with the ground. Shishi Renden, Lion Combo. Sasuke proclaimed triumphantly as he saw Gaara's face crack, some chips of sand armor flying off him. Sasuke, however, wasn't fool enough to think that this attack would slow Gaara down, and therefore leapt back to catch his breath. There was something about that move that kind of drained him. Besides, it wasn't like Gaara could repair the armor in a matter of seconds, so Sasuke had time. Though if I had Naruto's strength, I could have probably finished the match with that blow. It pains me to admit this, but I don't have the chakra control necessary for such strikes. During training, yes, but in a split second in the middle of a battle. Hell no. Only Naruto and Tsunade could pull that crap off. Freakish Senju. Gaara pushed himself to his feet, panting, his deadened look long gone, to be replaced by a look of rage. What's he doing now? Sasuke thought with narrowed eyes as Gaara put his hands in a ram seal. The sand surrounding Gaara rose up to form a ball around him, an impenetrable shield. This made Sasuke's eyes widen, and he rushed forward toward the only opening in the sand, praying he'd make it in time. If he shuts himself in there, he'll be able to recuperate in peace. The opening Sasuke was aiming for with his punch was rapidly closing. Sadly, however, he wasn't fast enough. The sand was sealed just as his punch connected, and a large amount of sand spikes shot out of the ball with such speed that it was only thanks to his Sharingan that Sasuke was able to dodge them without injury, leaping back to create some distance between them again. Well, Naruto already knows I copied it, but I had been hoping to wait to show him until the finals. Sasuke said with a small smirk as an eyeball of sand was formed floating above the sand shield. But I guess you're too tough for me to go through this match without using it. Sasuke flipped backward several times, up onto the arena wall, then smirked wider as he stretched a bit. Well, let's see how this holds up in a real fight, he said to himself as he flashed through 3 seals, before gripping his right wrist with his left hand. A spark flashed in the palm of his hand, then another, until his hand was enveloped in lightning chakra, so condensed that it could be seen with the naked eye. In the stands, Naruto's eyebrows shot up. Oh, wow, Sasuke isn't exactly holding back. I guess he wasn't as inclined to do so as I thought. Naruto-kun. Hinata said, giving Naruto a quizzical look. Sasuke has pushed a whole fifth of his chakra into that single attack, Naruto explained, looking impressed. That beast should cut through anything. Sasuke, on the wall, smirked wider as his Sharingan started spinning. Then, he took off. The only thing showing where he was running was the trench his lightning-covered hand left in the wall and the ground as he charged at Gaara. The lightning in his hand gave off a chirping sound, like thousands of birds shooting toward the target. Chidori. Sasuke cried as he stabbed his hand into the sand, the corners of his mouth curving up into a triumphant smirk as his hand sank through the sand, and into something warm and wet on the other side. He could feel bone at his fingertips, but it wasn't a spine. So, his aim had been a bit off. Probably just hit him in the shoulder, or the chest puncturing a lung at best. Better than nothing, though. Gotcha, Sasuke said simply, glaring at the sand dome with his blazing Sharingan. What's this warm stuff? Came Gaara's voice from within. Mother. What did? Ah. Uwaaaaaaah. Blood. My blood. Tch, shit. Sasuke muttered as he felt the sand tightening around his arm. He tried to pull it out, but the sand was just gripping him harder and harder. It wasn't just around his arm where the dome was. It was the entire length, all the way down to his wrist where his hand was buried in Gaara's body. Sasuke's Sharingan started spinning again as he charged even more lightning chakra into his attack, which caused the lightning to cover him all the way up to mid-bicep. Another cry of pain came from Gaara inside the dome, and Sasuke felt the sand loosen enough for him to pull his arm out. He pulled something else out with it. Some kind of demonic-looking sand arm was holding onto his own arm. He managed to escape from its grip and jumped back, gritting his teeth. Sasuke looked down at his arm to see that it was cut in several places, and was already starting to bruise. Some pressure you've got there, he muttered with a scoff. The sand dome bled away to reveal Gaara, panting and clutching at the hole Sasuke had punched in his shoulder. His eyes were wide and looked more crazed than ever. Suddenly, Sasuke saw a feather drift down in front of him. Looking around, he saw that a whole heap of feathers were falling from the sky. Genjutsu? He asked, canceling it with his Sharingan. Looking up at the stands, he saw Naruto and Hinata putting their hands in a ram seal and canceling it as well. In a blur, Naruto and Hinata had joined Sasuke down on the arena floor. This is interference, Sasuke commented offhandedly, to which Naruto gave a grin. Somehow, I don't think this genjutsu is Gaara's doing, the blonde said, looking around at all the sleeping people in the stands. Any theories? Why are you asking me? I've been a bit busy, if you hadn't noticed. A smoke bomb suddenly went off in the Hokage's box, making Team 7 go wide-eyed. They didn't have time to focus on that, however, as 4 more people blurred into view in front of them. It was Genma, Temari, Kankuro, and the Suna Junin Baki. Naruto. Sasuke barked at his best friend, who gave him his full attention. Go check on Hokage-sama. What about you? Something's off about this freak, Sasuke said as an explosion went off in the distance. When the smoke cleared, they could see a massive 3-headed snake having been summoned outside the east wall. Evidently, this is some kind of invasion, and that snake freak is at the center of it. Judging by the smoke bomb, the Sandaime is the target. You're a Senju. Protecting the will of fire is somewhat your duty, no. I'll take care of Gaara. Tch, there you go, taking charge again, Naruto mumbled. Alright, I'll leave this to you, Sasuke, Hinata. Yeah. Good luck, Naruto-kun. Naruto gave both of his teammates a pat on the shoulder, then blurred out of view and reappeared on the roof in front of the cage's box, just in time for the Kazekage's 2 bodyguards to be sliced in half by an Anbu, a captain, judging by the white robe he wore. A blur shot out of the smoke, landing on the roof of the box. It was the Kazekage, and he was holding the Sandaime from behind with a kunai at his throat. Gigi. Naruto yelled, his eyes wide in shock. 4 shapes shot out of the 4 halves of the bodyguards, to form a square formation some distance around the Kazekage. Naruto and the four Anbu shot after them, but didn't have time to catch them before they all formed seals, and a purple barrier formed around the Kazekage and Hokage. Sensing the potent chakra in the barrier, Naruto's eyes widened when he noticed that two of the Anbu were on a collision course. Shit, he grunted out as his hands formed a snake seal. Two wooden poles shot out of the roof and wrapped around the Anbu, catching them before they hit the barrier, and another pole shot out for the still airborne Naruto to land on. Don't touch it. He barked at the Anbu as he hopped down to land next to the captain, while the poles set down the two Anbu. This barrier is superheated. You'll burn to a crisp. Thanks for the assist, Naruto-san, the captain spoke in a surprisingly calm and collected voice. But then, one could expect no different from a veteran Anbu. My expertise lies mostly in assassination techniques. I hear you're a decent censor. Any ideas? There's no way anything physical will pierce that barrier, and neither will any chakra pass through, Naruto said, analyzing the barrier. It's a 4-point barrier, so only one of the casters needs to be taken out for the whole thing to come crashing down. And since we can't pierce it, we can only rely on Hokage-sama to bring it down from the inside, the captain concluded, nodding. Shit. Naruto looked down at the arena floor, to see the trio of Suna Genin rush off, probably at the order of their sensei. He was pleased to see that Sasuke and Hinata gave chase not even a second later. When he looked back to the Hokage, he saw the Kazekage reaching up and literally pulling his own face off like a mask, to reveal a pale, snake-like face underneath. Orochimaru. Naruto growled out through narrowed eyes. Shit, he's good. Managed to hide his chakra signature from me until now. So, in the forest, he wanted me to know where he was. They watched as Orochimaru released the Sandaime and walked a few steps away from him, taking off the Kazekage hat and robes. The Sandaime removed his robes as well, to show that he was wearing battle armor underneath, an unusually serious look on his face. So, if Hokage-sama could take out just one of those four, we could join in, the captain muttered, giving off a tisk of frustration. As if hearing him, the four Oto ninja forming the barrier suddenly formed another one inside, protecting them from attack. Naruto gritted his teeth at that and knelt down to the roof and pressed a finger against the tiles, while his other hand formed a half-ram seal. What are you? Another Anbu asked in confusion. I'm trying to find a weak spot. Naruto muttered, putting all of his concentration into the sensing. Then, his eyes widened when he felt that it was only a thin layer of chakra connecting the bottom of the box, and not an actual barrier. He flashed through seals at an amazing speed, ending in a snake seal. Mokuten. Shimaru Budunoki no Jutsu, wood element, strangling vines technique, he called out as the roof started rumming. Then, several wooden poles, thinner than his usual ones, burst out of the roof under the four Oto ninja, wrapping around them and lifting them into the air. The attack broke their concentration, and the barrier faded out of view as the vine-like wood wrapped around them tightly enough to make them cry out in pain. They moved upward, wrapping around the necks of the Oto ninja. One of them seemed to have two heads, so he took no chances and wrapped a vine around both neck. Then, they tightened. Cracks were heard, and all four bodies went slack, their struggle ceasing. Now that the barrier was down, and the four Oto ninja were down, Naruto and the four Anbu rushed over to the Sandaime to stand protectively in front of him. Orochimaru, the Anbu captain exclaimed. You will not lay a hand on Hokage-sama. What's this? Orochimaru asked, a smirk on his face which was absolutely terrifying in Naruto's opinion. Four flies have joined the fray. Unfortunately, such prey is too weak for my tastes. I'll have you disappear now. You bastard, the captain yelled out and made to charge. Stop. The Sandaime ordered. Yura, take your team and make sure the guests are alright. Naruto, I think your skills will be put to better use pursuing Gaara. The Anbu hesitated for only a second, but then dashed off. Naruto, however, stayed right where he was. Naruto, don't try to send me away, Gigi, Naruto said simply. Remember, I'm a Mokuten user. Given your teachers, my techniques should be the ones you work best with, right? Although I doubt I'm at your power level, I can at the very least provide you with backup. The Sandaime stared into Naruto's unflinching eyes for a moment, then sighed, a small smile on his face. Very well, he said finally. This may very well be my last fight. I'm happy that I will be fighting next to you. Naruto was way too proud to announce aloud just how much those words moved him. He just grinned and turned toward Orochimaru, who was simply watching them in amusement. How touching. Well then, Sarutobi-sensei. It seems your beloved surrogate grandson gets to watch you die. The shock's worn off, Naruto said, his fists clutching. You won't be able to freak me out again. We'll see, Orochimaru said with a sickening grin. His hands shot up and formed seals at a speed Naruto had trouble keeping up with, and the Sandame had already flung a shuriken at Orochimaru and was also flashing through seals. Shuriken Kage Bunshin, the Sandame called, and Naruto watched as the one shuriken turned into 50, all of them heading straight for Orochimaru, who finished his chain of seals by clapping his hands together. Kuchiyos. Edo Tensai, summoning, impure world resurrection. The Sandame's eyes widened when two coffins rose out of the roof. One had the kanji for 1 on it, and the other had the kanji for 2. The hell? Naruto uttered as the Sandame flashed through seals again, ending in a snake seal as the 50 shuriken impacted with the coffins, which Orochimaru used as a shield. Gigi, what is this? Prepare yourself, Naruto-kun, the Sandame said in a very grave tone of voice. You are about to meet your ancestors. My. Naruto trailed off as the lids of the coffins fell down to reveal who was inside. Standing in the coffin marked 1 was a man with tanned skin, despite the lack of blood in the body, and waist-length black hair combed back with 2 single locks framing his face. He wore all black, along with dark red armor, traditional back during the Warring States period. And standing in the coffin marked 2 was a tall, fair-skinned man with white, shaggy hair, dark-colored eyes, and 3 red markings on his face, 1 under each of his eyes, and 1 on his chin. He too wore traditional shinobi armor, but this one was blue, and he also had a white fur collar that Naruto easily recognized, along with the hapiri on his face. Shodai. Nadaime. Naruto uttered in surprise. It's been a long time, Saru, the Nadaime spoke, his gaze drifting toward Naruto. Oh, it's you. You've grown old, haven't you, Sarutobi? The Shodai said, sounding, if only slightly, amused. I would not have thought I would meet with you two brothers again in a situation like this, the Sandame muttered. It is regrettable. Please prepare to be defeated. Shodai-sama. Nadaime-sama. It's them, isn't it? Naruto asked, the hope he had been clinging to that this was just an elaborate genjutsu slipping away from him. Oh, who is this, Saru? The Nadaime asked. A copycat. Actually, Senju Naruto is Shodai-sama's great-grandson, the Sandame informed them, smiling slightly for the first time. Quite the inheritor of your wills. I wish we could have met under different circumstances, Gigi's, Naruto said with a bow of his head. The Nadaime hummed and looked behind him at Orochimaru. Edo Tensai. Huh. This youngster is the one who summoned us with a kinjutsu, huh. He's quite something. If that's so, then, Sarutobi, Naruto. I guess that would mean that we would have to fight against you, the Shodai said regretfully. How about you cease the old folks' chatter, and get started, why don't you? Orochimaru said as he approached the two Hokage, raising his hands, both of which held a kunai with a tag hanging from each. No matter how much the world changes, there is always fighting, the Shodai muttered, which made Orochimaru chuckle. You like it that way, though, right? Making tools of the dead. Nothing good will come of playing with time, the Sandame scolded, narrowing his eyes at the snake freak. Meanwhile, now far from the walls of Konoha, Sasuke and Hinata were in hot pursuit of Gaara. I'm a bit worried about Naruto-kun. Hinata said softly, her Byakugan activated. Don't worry about him, he can handle himself, Sasuke said reassuringly. Just focus on the task at hand, alright. We'll meet up with Naruto for yakiniku later. He gave Hinata a soft smile. Usually, one wouldn't have thought anything of it, but coming from Sasuke, who rarely smiled at anyone, this showed Hinata that the Uchiha had complete confidence in not only Naruto's ability to survive, but also their own. Hinata, steeling herself, nodded. Then, her eyes widened. Sasuke-kun, we have pursuers. Sasuke tensed up at hearing that. How many? 8 no, 9 ninja with Otogakur headbands. And there's only 2 of us. Not great for laying an ambush. Sasuke muttered, gritting his teeth. No, even then, their commander is Orochimaru, a former Konoha ninja. Which means they know our tactics, Sasuke concluded. That Kankuro guy talked to his sensei like Gaara was an important weapon in this invasion, which means that it will most likely be difficult to fight him, his siblings, and the Oto ninja at the same time. Divide and conquer. Hinata mumbled, to which Sasuke nodded. Yeah. We'd have to split up, one of us acting as a decoy for the Oto ninja, while the other keeps up the pursuit. I can. Sasuke turned his head to look at Hinata, to see her giving him a small smile. Sasuke-kun, I'm sorry for being selfish, but I think Gaara would be the more difficult opponent. That's why. I can stay behind, and act as a decoy. At this, Sasuke looked ahead once more, his eyes narrowing. He gave off a noise of agreement, albeit reluctantly, then turned to look at Hinata again. If you don't survive this, I'm going to drag you out of the afterlife to kill you myself, understand? Hinata gave a nervous smile and a nod, then promptly stopped on the next branch they landed on, while Sasuke kept going. She took a deep breath in an attempt to steady herself, her eyes drifting shut. No less than 3 minutes later, 8 of the Oto ninja landed on the forest floor below, to find Hinata standing there waiting for them, her eyes with a hardened edge to them. What's this? The evident leader of the ninja uttered, sounding amused. One brat. It's the Hyuga girl we were warned about, an Oto ninja to the leader's left said. Remember, we shouldn't play around with this team. Hinata got into a Juken stance and glared at the ninja with her Byakugan. This is as far as you're going to go, she announced as firmly as she could, but even then it was still soft, and evidently didn't carry much weight, as the ninja just started laughing at her. Any other genin, save for maybe Sasuke and Naruto, would have been caught off guard by the 9th ninja coming down at her from behind, but not Hinata. Her Byakugan saw it, and she was sure she surprised the other ninja when she spun around and deflected the kunai aimed for her head, before swiftly delivering a Juken strike to the man's throat. Hinata felt the bile rise in her throat when she felt the man's throat give away from her strike, which crushed it easily, but she was a ninja, and these men were enemies, so she couldn't afford to go into shock right now. You bitch, the leader exclaimed in shock, then gave a hand signal, which caused the other 7 to charge at Hinata, who steeled herself and took a deep breath as she spun to face them. Her spar with Hanabi hadn't meant much. Prodigy or not, Hanabi was still a child. And Naruto and Sasuke always held back in spars. Therefore, Hinata had doubted how much progress she had made in her training. Now, however, fighting these men, she could tell how much she had progressed, and could tell that Naruto and Sasuke had held back much less than they claimed. The strikes seemed to come at her in slow motion, and she dodged and countered with a surprising ease. Plus, this fight gave her an opportunity to test out the new move she had been working on, a combination born from her father's Kaden, Revolving Heaven, and her training in medical ninjutsu. Jukenho. Senpu no Mesu, Heavenly Fist Art. Whirlwind Scalpels, she proclaimed as the 4 remaining ninja came at her from all around her. She started spinning with an amazing speed, but unlike the Kaden, she didn't create a dome of chakra. Instead, she covered her hands with chakra scalpels, and became a spinning top of invisible blades, slicing into the enemy with blades so thin that the wounds weren't even visible. But their internal organs took damage, that was for sure. To the 4 attacking ninja it looked as though Hinata had just spun and hit them with karate chops, felt like it, too. And for a moment, there was silence. Then, the 4 victims cried out in pain and collapsed to the ground, clutching at their chests. I am impossible, the leader growled out as he clutched at his chest. What did you? I severed several muscles around your heart, and cut off all chakra flow to it, Hinata explained, exhaling slowly. Thus destroying any possibility of healing the damage. I did so with each ninja I took down here. Of course, they aren't conscious to complain. This can't be, the leader growled out, trying to rise but failing miserably. Our Intel said. You were the weakest member of your team. I am the weakest member, Hinata confirmed, a small smile on her face. That's a scary thought, isn't it? Well, I'm sorry, Oto-san. I haven't yet become so jaded that I can take the life of a defenseless enemy. So, I have to leave you here. Wait. The leader grunted out, but Hinata had already jumped off. Well then, shall we begin? Orochimaru asked as he sank the kunai into the back of the 2 Hokages' heads. But before that, I really must have the both of you return to your true forms. Steam started rising from the 2 walking corpses, and all signs of deterioration started vanishing. Within moments, both looked completely alive, as though they had never been dead. They look as they did even more so now, the Sandaime muttered, and Naruto glanced at him, to see him. Hey, Gigi, you're not hesitating, are you? I am mortified, I admit, but I am fully prepared to do what needs to be done, Naruto-kun, the Sandaime said, tensing up. You still have a chance to go help Sasuke-kun, but I doubt you will. I'm with you, Gigi. The Sandaime grunted, then said, Shodai-sama is a Mokuden user, as you know, and Nadaime-sama is one with Suiten Jutsu. These are the men you inherited your skill from, so you should somewhat know what you are up against. That's why you should know to stay on your guard. Just the title, Hokage, was enough to put me on guard, Gigi, Naruto said with a shaky grin. The Sandaime chuckled, then clapped his hands together. I am attacking, he announced, then flashed through a chain of hand seals. Kaiten, Karyu Endant Fire Element, Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. The Sandaime blew a stream of fire at the two Hokage that was so hot that even Naruto, standing next to him, flinched slightly. Suiten, Sujinheki Water Element. Water encampment wall came a cry from within the flames, and steam rose when the fire impacted with a wall of water that suddenly shot up around the two Hokage and Orochimaru. Once the fire died down, the water wall collapsed, but the Nadaime was quick to form a handseal, one, and call, Suiten, Suiryuden Water Element, Water Dragon Bullet. Naruto, the Sandaime called. Way ahead of you. Naruto said, flashing through seals. Suiten, Sujinheki. Naruto spat up a large amount of water, which rose to form a shield around him and the old Hokage. The water dragon that was roaring toward them smashed into the shield, at which point Naruto switched handseal to a ram seal and tensed up. The water in the wall started moving clockwise, like a raging river surrounding the two, and the water dragon merged with the shield bit by bit, until the shield had doubled in size, and there was nothing left of the dragon. Naruto sighed in relief. If that had been anyone but a senju, someone whose chakra is compatible to mine, that would never have worked. Well, Naruto-kun, now you know what you have to live up to, the Sandaime said with a small smirk on his face as the Shodai clapped his hands together in a snake seal. Look out. I know. Naruto exclaimed as both of them leapt into the air, the Sandaime forming a chain of seals, before coughing up a large wad of what appeared to be dirt, which shot up into the air to form a stone wall. Mokuten Haijutsu. Jukai Kuden Wood Element Secret Technique. Nativity of a World of Trees. The tiles below them cracked as plants sprouted from the roof, growing into trees at an alarming rate, even piercing through the stone wall the Sandaime had landed on with ease. Gigi, the still airborne Naruto yelled as a branch started wrapping around the old man, pulling him off the wall and down to the roof, another one heading for the blonde. Naruto flashed through handseals again, then his cheeks puffed out, and he spat out another high-pressured jet of water like in the forest of death, which sliced through the branch, and the branch holding the Sandaime. As he fell, Naruto formed another chain of seals, slamming his hand down into the roof as he landed. Mokuten. Shinrin Yusai no Jutsu, Wood Element, Forest Fortress Technique, he called. Wood, about 5 feet thick, shot out of the roof, forming a large building around the Sandaime and himself. The Sandaime grunted as he kicked the severed branch away from him, then clutched at a scratch on his shoulder. As I expected, it's troublesome to deal with both of them at once, he commented, as though this was a simple spar, and things were only a tiny bit too hard for him. This is insane. Naruto muttered, leaning back against the wall and exhaling deeply. I thought Orochimaru was strong. But these guys. Did you see him form a Suiryuden with just a single handseal? The Sandaime let out a, as he bit his thumb, then formed a series of handseals, before pressing his hand down against the ground. Kuchiyos no Jutsu. There was an explosion of smoke, and when it cleared, a monkey stood before the Sandaime. Well, a man-like monkey, anyway. He was tall, insanely so, standing about as tall as Jiraiya, his body and tail covered in white fur, which protruded from his sleeves and pants. He had long hair that reached down his back, along with long sideburns and a goatee. He wore black shinobi clothing with mesh armor underneath, over which he wore a sleeveless kimono shirt with white fur trimmings, and markings reminiscent of tiger stripes on it, which was held closed by a red sash. He also wore a Konoha forehead protector. Sarutobi, the monkey said, looking the old man over. It's been a long time since last you summoned me. What's the reason? And who's the Nadaime-looking brat? Naruto twitched at that, but he had heard many things about the Monkey King Enma, the Sandaime summon, so he wasn't really keen on mouthing off against him, considering he'd heard that Enma's strength was near equal to Tsunade's. This is Senju Naruto. He's helping me fight Orochimaru, who has used Edo Tensei to summon Shodai-sama and Nadaime-sama. Orochimaru. So it's come to this, after all. Enma muttered. You're pathetic, you know that, Sarutobi. This is all because you wouldn't kill him when you had the chance that time. That's what we're going to do from here on, Sarutobi said, unmoved by the insult. HMPH. You're a little too late. Enma. Use the Kongonyoe adamantine staff. Despite the fact that Enma looked incredibly rebellious, there wasn't even so much as a second of hesitation before Enma exclaimed. Gotcha. Henge. Enma disappeared in a puff of smoke, to be replaced by a long, very thick staff, which flew at Sarutobi, who caught it. Alright, let's go, Naruto-kun. Why yeah, Naruto said, clapping his hands together, which caused the wooden house to sink back into the roof. I am going first, Naruto-kun. Target the airborne, Sarutobi muttered, to which Naruto nodded. Then, the old man charged. So, what did you think? Love it. Hate it. Remember to leave a comment. Peace. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.